6 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. Now here's CBS.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. Mikhail Gorbachev said today that peace is at hand in Afghanistan. Gorbachev and the Afghan president issued the statement after they met in Soviet Central Asia. They said the way is clear for a peace agreement to be signed in Geneva and for Soviet troops to start withdrawing May 15th. That would be just 2 weeks before the Reagan-Gorbachev election year summit. From Moscow, Barry Peterson begins our report.
It was a hurriedly arranged meeting to end a 9-year war. Soviet leader Gorbachev telling Afghan President Najibullah, the Soviets' hand-picked leader, that the Soviets are calling it quits. The announcement made in Moscow as well.
We are going to begin our withdrawal May 15th if we have this agreement signed.
The truce agreement won approval later in the day from Pakistan. Gorbachev was seen on Soviet TV tonight saying the time for peace has come. The United States will reportedly keep supplying anti-government guerrillas. The Soviets can keep sending arms to Kabul. But some reports say the two sides at least agreed to keep the arms shipments at roughly the same level. They leave behind a legacy of death and frustration. By some estimates, up to 50,000 Soviets killed, roughly the same number as Americans killed in Vietnam. The Soviets are ready for the war to end.
People will react very positively because they are tired and sick of this war.
And like Vietnam, the sacrifices for Afghanistan must now be explained to the Soviet people. The idea, blame it on Brezhnev and others who first got the country into the war.
Since everyone who is responsible for that decision is either dead or retired, it makes it quite easy for them to rewrite history. It's a big memory hole when it's in a cemetery.
The withdrawal could be well underway by the time President Reagan arrives in Moscow in late May, which means the issue of Afghanistan would be something the Americans could no longer use against the Soviets at the superpowers summit. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Moscow.
From his California ranch, President Reagan expressed what his staff described as cautious optimism at the promise of Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan, though his chief of staff says Mr. Reagan also wants to see the fine print.
We've got to examine that communique carefully. It appears to be a step forward, and it may very well lead to a resolution of these issues and a pull out of Soviet troops from Afghanistan.
And administration officials stressed again today the U.S. demand that the Soviets cut off aid to the Afghan government as a condition to halting U.S. aid to the rebels.
There has to be symmetry in the arrangements between us and the Soviet Union so that as long as they are able to continue providing military aid to the Kabul regime, we will retain the right to provide military aid to the Mujahideen.
The Soviet presence in Afghanistan has been a sore point between the superpowers ever since Moscow's 1979 invasion. But recently, as prospects for a settlement brightened, President Reagan has found a diplomatic way to excuse Gorbachev himself.
You must remember that there were other leaders under which this happened. He inherited that.
If Soviet troops are, in fact, on the way out of Afghanistan as the Moscow summit begins next month, that will leave Mr. Gorbachev free to try to raise world expectations for a new arms control agreement. And it'll leave President Reagan free to argue that the next thing Moscow ought to do is get out of Central America. Bill Plant, CBS News, with the president in Santa Barbara.
Israel tonight is in turmoil over the killing of a teenage girl who was hiking with a group of Jewish settlers on the West Bank yesterday. Today, Israeli soldiers destroyed houses and killed a Palestinian in the town where she was slain. They said they shot the Palestinian when he refused an order to halt. But even as Israeli settlers called for more revenge, army officials were raising questions about the girl's death because an inquest turned up a bullet in her body from a weapon that was carried by an Israeli civilian guard. Army sources said Palestinians had not fired weapons in the incident. Correspondent Bob Simon was on the West Bank today as the Israeli army stood between the settlers and the Arabs.
Every village anywhere near the village of Beta was a military zone all night, troops making sure that today's ceremonies would not erupt into warfare. Dawn broke over a joyous occasion at Alon Moreh, the settlement where the Jewish hikers came from, where the body of 15-year-old Tirza Porat was being prepared for burial. The party was for an 8-day-old baby boy who'd just been circumcised, meaning he'd become a Jew, another settler on the West Bank.
This is just another deep expression of our belief in the eternity of Israel.
A circumcision or a hike, for the settlers, everything becomes a political event, an affirmation of their right to be on this land. There were pockets of sadness here. You could see it on the faces of the teenagers who went on that hike, kids paying for the politics of their parents. Elon Moray resembled the Dodge City of the wild West Bank today. Celebrants were armed with M16s and Uzi submachine guns. The moderates were packing .45s. The mood changed in a flash as the body, wrapped in a black shroud with the Star of David, was taken from the family home. Later, the cause of death was revealed to be an M16 gunshot wound in the head. Preliminary army reports indicate that the Arabs did not fire any shots, that Tirza Porat was accidentally killed by the Israeli armed escorts who were aiming at Palestinian stone throwers. Arabs knew to keep their distance from this funeral procession. In Nablus, a few onlookers peered tentatively from behind a wire fence. The army set up roadblocks all along the procession route at every junction with a road leading to an Arab village. They're here primarily to protect the Palestinians from the wrath of the settlers, Israeli soldiers defending the Arabs from the Jews. The hills overlooking the tiny cemetery were dotted with the wild flowers of this furious springtime, and with mourners by the thousands, mourners driven by a desire to wreak vengeance on the village of Beta and on the Arabs who live there.
They should be deported before the night's over, and Jews moved in before the night's over, a new settlement.
The village should disappear from the map of the world.
The army blew up 5 homes owned by families linked to the violence. It held 300 men for questioning, and it hunted down villagers who were on the run. When these 4 young men refused to stop running, soldiers opened fire. Minutes after these pictures were taken, the man in white was shot dead. There will be another funeral tomorrow. Bob Simon, CBS News on the West Bank.
Arab hijackers said tonight they were preparing to take off from an airport in Iran, their destination unknown. They are still holding more than 50 hostages aboard a Kuwaiti airliner and demanding freedom for terrorists jailed in Kuwait. In London, correspondent Tom Fenton has been following day 3 of the siege.
Iranian authorities gave in to the hijackers' demand for fuel and spare parts after the pilot radioed he would be shot if he didn't take off. The Iranians say the hijackers fired several warning shots at security forces. Iranian officials are now openly sympathizing with the hijackers. Iranian TV has been running interviews with some of the freed hostages to show that the hijackers have acted humanely.
We were very good treated. We were treated very good. Treated very good, very relaxed.
The hijackers' most likely next stop, indeed almost the only place where they might be able to land, is Beirut Airport.
In my view, it is a great mistake to let it function as a civil airport because of this very danger that it will be used as a bolt hole by hijackers.
In 1985, the 17-day hijacking of TWA 847 ended in Beirut. There, the hijackers simply disappeared in the back alleyways of the city, some of them only to emerge later and commit other crimes. Reports from Beirut Airport tonight say security forces there have been placed on the alert and that barriers will be put on the runway. But similar precautions have been taken there in the past, and they haven't stopped hijackers from using it as a sanctuary. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
In this country, a stunning verdict this afternoon in the trial of 13 white supremacists. Among charges they faced, conspiracy to overthrow the government of the United States and start an all-white nation of their own in the Pacific Northwest. Bob McNamara reports from Fort Smith, Arkansas.
2 months after the accused white supremacists went on trial here amid heavy federal security, the verdicts from the all-white jury came on the 4th day of deliberations. For Robert Miles, a former Michigan Ku Klux Klan leader, innocent of seditious conspiracy to overthrow the federal government. Also innocent of the same charges were Richard Butler of Idaho's neo-Nazi Aryan Nations Church and Louis Beam, a former Texas Klan Grand Dragon. For the 10 other defendants, some of them serving long prison terms for neo-Nazi activities, all were found innocent of attempting to assassinate federal officials and innocent of transporting stolen money across state lines. Defendants said theirs was a victory for a system they'd been accused of trying to overthrow.
10 men and 2 ladies gave their decision that freedom of speech, freedom of association, and freedom of religion is alive and well in America.
All the power should come down to the county and everybody can live together, and Washington, D.C. would be a nice park.
Prosecutors were stunned by the defeat.
No, we don't feel that it was a mistake at all.
Do you think that with the different...
all that we wanted to see done is that, to see that justice was done. We brought the case, we presented it, we did the best job that we thought we could.
In a form of courthouse theater, defendant Louis Beam took his bitterness to the foot of a nearby Confederate monument.
I want to say to hell with the federal government.
Beam's wife later collapsed. The government's losing such a case is a heavy setback in its war on racial hate groups. Prosecutors had hoped that convictions would finally break the back of organized white supremacists. But as some of the jailed defendants returned to their cells, the defiance continued, one shouting, "Proud white forever." Bob McNamara, CBS News, Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Still to come on the CBS Evening News, correspondent Susan Spencer on salmonella poisoning and a serious twist on the old question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And Terry Drinkwater on the Hollywood Dream Machine and some new dreamers.
It's not unusual that Subaru has sold a lot of cars. What is unusual is how many of them are still running. An astonishing 92% of all Subarus registered since 1978 are still on the road. And now, if you buy a Subaru, you'll get back as much as $2,000. Of course, that $2,000 may not be built to last, but at least you know your Subaru is.
Ann McKenzie, interior decorator for Endust.
Does your furniture have wax buildup? Well, using spray wax too often can cause wax to build up and trap dirt. Use it only occasionally to polish. For day-to-day cleaning, use Endust. It has no wax buildup. Look, after cleaning your best with spray wax, spray Endust. If your cloth gets dirty, you've got wax buildup. So use spray wax only for occasional waxing. Use Endust for day-to-day cleaning.
If you think you've heard all there is about aspirin, think again. Today, there's an even better aspirin formula, Anacin. Clinical tests show that Anacin relieves headache pain better than regular strength aspirin.
Anacin, a better aspirin formula.
My son recommended Preparation H for my hemorrhoidal symptoms. Why should I listen to a kid? That kid is also a doctor.
It often relieves pain and itching for hours, helps shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissue, and soothes painful irritation.
Doctors know best.
The positioning of the Democratic presidential candidates for the crucial April 19th New York primary today included a public warning from Governor Mario Cuomo to Al Gore. The message, cool criticism of Jesse Jackson and Michael Dukakis. And candidate Paul Simon went slip-sliding away today, but not his delegates. CBS News chief political correspondent Bruce Morton reports on Cuomo speaking up and Simon getting out.
In Washington, Paul Simon quit.
Running for president is a little like taking an ice-cold shower. It's a great one-time experience, but I have no yearning for a repeat performance.
But Simon did not release his delegates. He'll keep them until the primaries are over, so that if there's bargaining, he'll be a bargainer. Jesse Jackson staffers called that obstructionist politics. Jackson would have gotten some of the delegates had Simon released them. Here in New York, Governor Mario Cuomo urged the candidates to be positive, especially Albert Gore, who has criticized his rivals.
This criticism of Dukakis and Jackson, I don't believe, helped Al Gore. And I don't believe it helps the Democratic Party, and I've said that to Al Gore.
But Gore, appearing before the State Democratic Committee, said he'd keep talking about his differences with the other two, linking them with the Democrats' presidential disasters in 1972 and 1984.
I'm not in this race to criticize Reverend Jackson and Governor Dukakis, but I'm not the only one in New York State who thinks the Democratic Party can do better.
Indeed, he's not.
I wish him well. I think he's first-rate, terrific. Al.
New York Mayor Ed Koch stopped just short of a formal Gore endorsement, and he has launched scathing attacks at Jesse Jackson.
If he were elected, we'd be in bankruptcy in 3 weeks and defenseless in 6 weeks. Now, is that a terrible thing to say? I believe it.
Jackson at that Democratic State Committee meeting was Mr. Party Unity, all coalition and light.
This time around, my friend, wisdom would dictate we take a positive road and a high road and build a viable coalition.
But this is New York, where the mayor and the governor and the local guys are likely to be fussing and feuding, whatever the presidential candidates do. Bruce Morton, CBS News, New York.
As the Democrats fight on for the nomination, George Bush is campaigning as the certain Republican nominee, trying to position himself for November. Bush has had unity meetings with Robert Dole. Since quitting the race, Dole has quit raising questions about the so-called wimp factor and Bush's electability. Pat Robertson has quit campaigning in New York. Our chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer looks tonight at Bush's success in portraying himself as soulmate and heir to Ronald Reagan.
He tried hard in the primaries to let people get to know him, but despite his best efforts and all those years in all those government jobs, some Republicans say George Bush has yet to carve out any real identity of his own. He remains the loyal man at Ronald Reagan's side who somehow just blends in.
I don't think he has wanted to stand out in any job. I think he has wanted to be a very good member of the team.
Former UN Ambassador Jean Kirkpatrick agrees after working with Bush 4.5 years on various issues. She says, "I don't feel I know where he stands." Bush's friends call that a bad rap.
You know, the vice presidency is not an operational job. It wasn't intended to be an operational job. The suggestion that he didn't weigh in on issues is simply not accurate. He weighed in on issues, but he did so the way a vice president should.
The other part is it worked. As he crushed his opponents in the primaries, exit polling showed his ties to Reagan to be Bush's strongest asset.
The defense of the nation, as I said, is the single most important responsibility of the president.
Bush leans heavily on Reagan's successes, peace with a strong defense and no new taxes. But now some in his party say he must refine his own message, develop his own identity. They warn that close ties to Reagan may not turn out to be all good. What happens, for example, if Iran-Contra does blow up, or Ed Meese's problems get a lot worse?
He's going to have to give him a reason not only to vote against the party of Dukakis and Jackson, but a reason to vote for George Bush and to believe they've got a vested interest in his victory as well as him.
Bush's strategists say the election will not be about specifics.
I don't think it'll be about any singular issue near as much as it will be about who goes to the White House and who do they most trust to make those judgments for him during this next term.
But while people may trust George Bush, his image problems just won't go away. On car radios in the nation's capital today, a new song satirizing Bush raised questions that could haunt his campaign.
I don't have to change my image or my strategy to win. 4 more years of Ronald Reagan keeps the money rolling in. And I'm a man. Yes, I am. Ronald Reagan has told me so.
And that is George Bush's problem from now to November, to show voters somehow that even though he's been Ronald Reagan's man, he's his own man too. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Washington.
Color Tile's store-wide spring sale is on. Get incredible savings on the latest styles for all your home improvements. Versatile outdoor-indoor paver tile, 27.5 cents each. Gorgeous black or white vinyl tile, 59 cents each. Rich wood parquet, $1.40 to $1.56 a square foot. And a special offer on all in-stock wall covering. Buy one, get one free. Come to Color Tile's store-wide spring sale now.
Bring the beauty home. Color Tile.
Hurry, sale ends Sunday.
Uh-oh, this evergreen's turned sickly yellow. You know, whether the problem's winter damage or iron deficiency or alkaline soil, here's one thing that can help save your evergreens: Stearns Miracid. Miracid works fast, provides special chelated iron, nutrients, and soil acidifiers, and that's exactly what azaleas and other evergreens must have to grow strong and beautiful. Sure, ordinary plant foods feed, but Miracid feeds, ironizes, acidifies for more beautiful evergreens.
When it's time to sell your home, you want action. And that's what you get with the Century 21 Action Warranty.
My personal promise of service, in writing.
The Century 21 Action Warranty. One more reason to come with us.
For complete details, call a participating office.
Come with us. Put your trust in #1, Century 21.
Sometimes solving medical problems requires something like detective work. Health authorities wondered why there was a major increase in one kind of death in the northeastern part of the United States. Today, they think they have found the answer, and it's important everyone knows what the researchers suspect. So medical correspondent Susan Spencer tells us.
May 1987, a man who ate at this New Hampshire restaurant dies of food poisoning. 3 months later, food poisoning sweeps through this New York City hospital. 400 patients are sick, and 12 of them die.
This morning we learned that the contaminant in the food was in fact salmonella.
Salmonella, as health authorities have watched cases shoot up six-fold in the last 10 years in the Northeast, the question has been, where is it coming from? Today, the Centers for Disease Control reported that 3/4 of the recent cases have been traced to eggs, grade A eggs.
A lot of these infections, in fact, took place from people who ate eggs, which they thought looked perfectly fine.
The egg industry doesn't deny it.
A lot of it seems to be associated with eggs. The question is why?
The CDC offers an answer that the industry rejects, that unlike past problems, this salmonella got into the egg when it was still in the chicken, and not through poor sanitation after the egg was laid.
Since all of these eggs have been disinfected on the surface of the shell, we had to consider the possibility that they may be contaminated on the interior contents of the egg.
If that was the case, I think we would have found a lot of flocks that were infected, and we would have found breeder flocks that were infected.
But inspections still are underway, since if salmonella is entering eggs before they're laid, prevention would mean destroying the flocks. In the meantime, the CDC says hospitals and nursing homes should avoid uncooked eggs. The old and sick are most at risk. And it warns restaurants that only thorough cooking destroys salmonella. As for individuals, the egg industry insists that the odds of salmonella being in any given egg are 1 to 2 in a million. But the CDC says avoiding raw eggs, as in Caesar salad, hollandaise, and eggnog, may not be a bad idea. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Washington.
Amid new talk that technical problems may again delay the first space shuttle flight since Challenger exploded, NASA today picked a pole escape system for shuttle crews. It's reportedly favored by most astronauts. The alternative was a rocket-propelled escape system. Astronauts worried that might be a safety hazard in itself. NASA also showed off the prototype of a gizmo called the Retriever. It can retrieve things and people drifting in orbit. No human needed to operate it.
My picture on the Wheaties box? All right! Just like the big boys.
Or the bigger boys.
Dad. Me, on a real Wheaties box. And sealed in clear acrylic.
Now anyone can be a big boy. Just send us your picture and we'll put it on a real Wheaties box.
Look for details on the Breakfast of Champions. And picture yourself on a Wheaties box. So tell your mama what the big boys eat.
Betty Crocker's new potato medleys are like nothing before. It's the vegetables that make them taste like so much more. Mushrooms and green beans. It's Betty's potatoes with the vegetable teas. New potato medleys.
This is the all-new Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. And this is the new Cutlass Supreme game going on right now. Game brochures are at your Oldsmobile dealer or participating McDonald's. Understand so far? Good. Play the Cutlass Supreme game. You could win an all-new Cutlass Supreme SL or $1,000 in cash. And you'll get a coupon for cash back on a new Cutlass Supreme. Game pieces are at your Olds dealer. You should go there. Any question? Good.
Hemorrhoids. They hurt, burn, and swell. And more doctors recommend Anusol to relieve the hurting than all other hemorrhoid medicines combined. Anusol is the word to remember for relief.
Hollywood is the place where the world's dreams are made. Tonight, the CBS News broadcast 48 Hours goes behind the scenes to show you the reality behind the dream machine. And part of that reality is that Hollywood, which produces some of this nation's most successful exports, is attracting the interest of some of our most successful competitors. Terry Drinkwater reports.
So what's your name again? Should I know you?
Well, I haven't actually been published yet, but I've...
When the new Michael J. Fox movie, Bright Lights, Big City, opened in Hollywood, one ticket buyer was there for more than entertainment.
Bright Lights, Big City, three adults.
Toshihiro Nagayama's Japanese conglomerate is the major investor in the film, putting up $5 million. And now he's here to see how it's playing.
In the worst case, maybe we lose all of our money.
In the best case?
Best case, we'll expect a return of triple or double or triple.
Okay, rehearsing.
The Japanese have come to Hollywood, come to invest in American films. The dollars aren't huge yet, but with the cost of making movies going through the roof, they're welcome.
It's almost impossible to make a picture at a decent price. Decent today would be a $10 million picture.
What's a movie starring Tom Berenger, Daphne Zuniga?
The Japanese backers of Bright Lights, Big City are also major investors in this film, Last Rites, now being edited.
If we cut it tighter, we might make it work a little better.
And another Tokyo conglomerate is joining with Columbia for a picture to be released next year.
Movies gives always dream and someone could make big money.
Big money in the United States and in Japan, where the number of theater goers is second only to those in this country. But an even more important market in Japan is home video and pay TV, where today there's a real shortage of films. Down the road, the Japanese may want to buy their own Hollywood studio.
If the film business continues to look as attractive as it does today, they will want to participate in it by owning some of the leading companies.
Gamble and dream and business.
Toshihiro Nagayama concedes he doesn't entirely understand some of the subtleties in the film he financed, but he does understand the lines at the box office. He likes what he sees. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Hollywood.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Until 48 hours in Hollywood, tonight at 8, 7 Central Time, Dan Rather. See you again soon.
Painful conditions are a fact of life in a modern hospital. And when it comes to relieving everyday pain, the overwhelming choice of hospitals is Tylenol. Tylenol is clinically proven effective for all kinds of pain. That's a medical fact. And there's another important thing you should know. Hospitals can trust Tylenol not to irritate your stomach. In fact, unlike aspirin or even ibuprofen, Tylenol is so easy on your stomach, most ulcer patients can use it. Tylenol. It's tough on pain, easy on your stomach.
Oh, look, after 20 years, Michael loves Sarah.
You haven't changed.
I take care of myself.
And she takes Geritol Complete with nearly twice the iron of ordinary supplements.
Marry me? Again?
Geritol Complete for the best years of your life.
Second-class phones, they're making second-class phones.
Hello?
Phones
12 o'clock. Blow your
phones with no tone.
Lots of people with telephones not made by AT&T are reporting some kind of complaint. When was the last time you had a complaint with an AT&T phone?
Second-class phones, they're making second-class.
Get the first-class phones of AT&T. You get what you pay for. AT&T, the right choice.
Excuse me.
No problem. We know about Kaopectate too.
Kaopectate actually absorbs the germs that can cause diarrhea.
Kaopectate, thanks. The diarrhea specialist.
Hollywood. Come behind the scenes in a city of dreams.
I want to be a star, you know?
48 hours tonight.
This is CBS.